Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. So we have two wonderful women here who are going to be talking about women investors, a growing force in the tech space. So Melisa, thank you so much for joining, and Carmen, thank you so much for joining too. So today we have a really action-packed session. We have about 20 minutes. So I'm basically going to be doing rapid fire questions. But if you do have any questions and we have a little bit of time, please pop them in the Q&A and I'll try and monitor the session and make sure we can get them to our two speakers. So essentially, this session is all about how you ladies got into the ecosystem, how we can get more women involved as well, what it's like for women in BC as well. Melisa, I'd love to start with you first. At 25, you're the youngest partner at East Ventures. Can you tell us a little bit about how you broke into the industry?
Of course. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. For my experience, I think it was quite rare. I joined right after school, and the opportunity was because I wanted to get like a fast opportunity to work beside doing my thesis at school. So apparently the leader of East Ventures was someone that is very fast decision maker. And he was like right after the interview, he asked me to join a meeting with fund of companies with which East Ventures ended up investing with. That's social. I remember very clearly. So all along the time, there are a lot of learning. I had a very lucky opportunity that the firms does not put a lot of expectations that you need to graduate from certain university or certain years of experience to be able to be exposed with the tech investment landscape. So that openness actually allows me to be able to learn very quickly directly from the industry, as well as get like hands-on job training during the time by meeting a lot of entrepreneurs and dealing with them.
And is this the typical way that East Ventures recruit people into the firm?
Technically, I guess the funny story was that I think the partner, Wilson, that time wasn't really recruiting. So it's just like some people who really wanted to enter the industry and think that at East Ventures is probably one of the, platform for learning are pushing it to happen. So it technically was like a romanticized stories back then. Today, we are much larger organizations than we were before, but we maintain the spirit that the same kind of spirits that we have with entrepreneur as well. Like with entrepreneur, most of our entrepreneurs are first-time entrepreneur. The team member that joins us are mostly less than 3 years experience when they join. So as long as there's a lot of number one, hunger to learning, and number two, there's a huge enthusiasm to be in the industry. That's the core materials for us to allow people to actually get exposure at our company.
Mm-hmm. And so Carmen, thank you for joining as well. You've had a very different journey to Melisa. I know in your background that you actually came from government before. So how did you make that transition into the BC world?
Right. So thanks a lot everyone for joining the panel, for joining our session. So actually, how I made the transition was when I was still in EDB Investments, right? So the transition came because my former boss at EDB Investments decided to take a risk in hiring me. So similar to what Melisa has shared, EDB, as you will know, is actually an organization where if you throw a stone, you'll probably land on a scholar, right? I mean, that's the saying. And I do not have that kind of a scholar kind of a GPA nor CV. But yes, that's why I say that my boss took a risk with me, right? So I tend to believe that he saw something in me that would probably be well suited for the industry. So before joining EDB Investments, I was actually working as a business development person with an IT research firm. And that was in trying to do licensing of some technologies, etc. So from there, when he saw that there was this kind of a CV, he decided to take a risk, right, and hire me. Even my academic training was nothing close to finance nor accounting, right? So my academic training was that of marketing and international business. And I would say that it's probably my curiosity, probably the willingness to just listen to founders and listen to him when he was telling me about what's expected, etc. Before forming a decision. I think that's really important. For founders, when they start a business, it's because they have gotten some conviction. So we as VCs on the other side of the table, do we really hear them? Do we really listen to their pitch? Or do we imagine that we already know? I think that makes a difference in the VC, right? And so since then, I have been working from EDB Investments to helming the Seed Capital project when they were raising, when they were just investing in the startups in Singapore, before I land on an opportunity with Vertex. So again, for Vertex, my current general partner, Ju Hock, reached out to me when I was on a sabbatical leave, and we had a conversation, and then I was hired. So I will say that again, it is an opportunity that presented itself, but I would like to think that it has got to do with the willingness to learn, and never always right, but that willingness to learn and consider options. Yeah, and I think that's an attribute that VCs ought to have.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people have the perception that VC is, you must have a finance background, you must have a degree from like a top tier university. There's this kind of mentality or idea out there that that's the type of background that people have when they get into VC. And it's just very interesting that you both have come from very different backgrounds and are quite senior in your organizations and quite large funds as well. And so I know we had the conversation earlier about getting more women into this ecosystem. It's very well known that there aren't that many women that are senior in funds. So I guess what would you say is, I guess, the secret to, and you touched on this a little bit, Carmen, what do you think the secret is to succeeding in this industry? Not necessarily just as a woman, but I think as anyone who's trying to break into the industry, because I think it's opening up for a lot of different types of people from different types of backgrounds. So maybe Carmen, if you'd like to take that question first.
Right. So succeeding in the field of work, right, which is in the venture capitalist world. So what one of my general partners said, and I think this is very true, and Melisa will probably agree. What Hillock had said was that the VC world actually involves three things, right? So, and all three of them are important at different stages. Number one, we have to be excellent in fundraising. So if we have a bigger pot of money, then we can do more things, right? So we have to be excellent in fundraising. The second thing is we have to be excellent in sourcing and investing into great projects, right? So that's from an investment standpoint. The third thing is after we've invested, we must learn how to divest with profits in mind, right? Divesting at $1 or writing off is easy, but how do you divest with a great profit, great returns, so that we can return money to our investors? And only if we're able to handle all these three, then will there be a continuity in the existence of the fund or of the VC world, right? So in this entire continuum, you actually need different skill sets. And thankfully, all of us are different, right? It will be extremely boring if all of us are great at only investing and never good at fundraising. So I'm thankful that because we have different people, so therefore we have got different skill sets. So from managing investors, having that relationship with them, speaking to founders, and then managing the portfolio, having difficult conversations with founders, especially during very lean times. All these are actually a reflection of how we handle relationships, handle the people, which is extremely key, right? And as the companies are developing and growing, some of them, when they hit rough patches, do we then just write them off and don't want to have a conversation with them, stop picking up their calls, stop responding to their messages? Or do we still work closely with them, even though we know in our heart they may not be a star? I think this will be important because our relationship with them during the hardest journey will actually speak about the character of the fund managers. And bear in mind that startup world is actually very small, and so our behavior actually precedes us, and founders do talk. So I think to be successful in this field, not only do you have to be good in all three aspects, but ultimately businesses are run by people. So it's really about how we handle people in a way that is that is respectful of them, and also to help them go through hardest part and the best part, which is in the exit side.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Melisa, do you have any, I guess, tips on that side as well?
I totally agree with Carmen, what Carmen said about what determines the performance of VC. And from my experience, I think a big part of the work now is to deliver those results. I think we all have to have the capability of building a great team, and how we are able to ensure that those team members are able to help the firm achieve to that level. I think that's very important. Second, on top of that was the ability to, strive in a certain degree of aloneness to a certain extent, because in VC industry there is a huge tendency to, we call it like FOMO, like you hear that the other firm is doing a deal and you feel like it's because everybody else is doing the deal. You feel like you have to participate in the deal, while it might not be the certain case for what is the performance you want to drive and what is the real thesis that you have as a firm about that industry. So in achieving those, I guess like some key traits that we've been discussing a lot was that I think number one for early joiners in the industry, which just a lot of things we talk about like empathy. Like, can we use empathy as a tool for us to learn? To really try to, I think a lot of times we assume that we already know what the industry expects or what we are expecting out of the performance of the company. Same like what Carmen just mentioned earlier. But can we utilize our capacity of empathy to use it as a tool to try to get to know the information that we need for us to make decisions? I think that's very key. I think second traits was the ability to develop a very high mental capacity. So sometimes the hard part journey of a PC is that you always want to have like a good relationship with everybody, be great and be helpful to all the founders. Unfortunately, you can't treat everybody the same. So sometimes it's a very hard part that you have to go through. Sometimes there are some companies that you really need to put a lot of resources in. Some companies that you have to talk to the founders that maybe it's time to let go and start something else, and it's a better journey for him. So it really requires a huge ability to overcome that situation that you talk to. And I think the third one is a continuous drive for excellence, like to think that we should only deliver the best result. And it relates to the second one too, because sometimes you can choose whether to do a lot of things, but at the mediocre performance, or to pick and choose a couple of ones, but at those you really like give like 110%. So it delivers like maximum result. So I think those are the capacities that many people would have to develop in order to be able to strive, especially in early stage PC investment.
Yeah. And so we do have a couple of questions from our audience who are listening in, and it kind of goes to one of the questions that I sent through to you guys to help prepare for the session, which was, what are some of the challenges that you've identified that need to be overcome to enable more women to work in VC? And in particular, we have some questions here, which are, if you would like to touch on this, if there are any challenges for working from home from mothers in this type of industry, are there enough initiatives to help push forward women in VC and women in tech? And I guess how can women continuously break through? Like how can we get more women led funds or women, as senior executives and senior partners in an organization? But I think overall it goes to the broader question of, what are the bigger challenges out there that you've identified? We do only have 5 minutes, so it is a rapid fire question. Carmen, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, so thank you. Yes, I will. So I believe it is a timing issue. It will take time. And so long as we have a creative founders, creative people who are trying to solve problems, VCs will still have a day in the business, right? And diversity talks are already commonplace discussions. And actually, even for investors in our fund, some of these limited partners or investors are already evaluating funds to see if they have got diversity, to see if they are complying to ESG criteria, etc. So funds are already very sensitive to the need to have women working with them. But unlike Melisa, not all funds will start hiring and quickly promoting, right? So I really give it to Wilson. I think he's excellent. He's a quick decision maker. Totally agree, right? And decisive one at that. But generally, for other funds, you may need some time. So when we are in the position of working in a VC fund, then we owe it to our female race to do an excellent job, right? A good job. We have to maintain integrity. We have to make sure that we are so excellent, that we deliver great work. So because we are paving the way for a generation of other women to come behind us, then when it comes to whether or not we should look at breaking out to form our own fund, the question is, when LPs look at new funds, they will expect to see your track record, right? So track record is something that's very difficult for first-time funds. And people are basically investing based on your integrity, based on what you have done previously. So therefore, it is very important that we continue to do great work. Do we really need to break out into new funds? I believe that if the track record of the funds are good, there's no need to, because we will have a continuity plan in the fund. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. No, I see that. I mean, we have just set up our fund, and track record is one of the biggest things. I mean, luckily for us, we had a previously managed portfolio, but for new people who are breaking into the space, that's incredibly difficult to show unless, you have some kind of investments you've made previously. Melisa, do you have any thoughts on this as well?
I think I'm on the same wavelength with Carmen. I think for funds like us, the big homework is probably how are we able to provide a platform that allows our other successors to be able to, facilitate them so that they can achieve a certain performance or even much better performance at the fund, and help them to get exposure for those credits that they take. Right? I guess that's things that are within our control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. It kind of goes to the whole model minority thing, right? When you are put in this kind of position, or where you have access to this kind of position, you really can't afford to make too many mistakes, because you're paving the way for other people behind you as well. So it does kind of have that challenge to it as well. So we do have about 2 minutes left, and I wanted to kind of hand it over to both of you if you had any kind of final things that you would like to say to people who are listening out there, or to women who are trying to break into the VC industry. Carmen, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So I believe that we are living in a very good time where there's a lot of funds. So for founders who are coming out to do their own projects, trying to raise funds, even if they are female, don't be too hung up about the fact that there aren't enough female represented in VCs. Just continue to do the great work. Make sure you are providing a solution that is solving a big enough problem, and you continue to have the perseverance to speak to investors. Just continue knocking on their doors, refining your pitch. I'm sure we have got sufficient VCs such that somebody will probably resonate with their proposition. Now, if none resonate, then the question is perhaps we should go back to the drawing board and relook at our problem statements. Don't get too hung up that there's not enough VCs, but just do a great work. So just to give you a statistic in Vertex, out of our about 40-ish portfolio, we have about 8 companies, so you're looking at about 20%, where there's female founders within the founding team. So we are not deliberate in finding female-founded startups, but we do invest in the best startups, and they are founded by females, so be it. So just don't be too hung up. Just do the best you can.
Yeah. And Melisa?
Yeah, I think for the key is to really focus on the true work we are delivering, be it independent from the gender and independent of the education background or experience. I think that's very important to truly focus on that. Be highly critical on delivering the results that you are expecting. For us, we've seen where we have seen on how the landscape changed, although we are not like a gender lens investing focus side. But there is, when we implement the, I would say like non-gender lens, like not biasing on female or male, we have seen on how the ecosystem changed. I think we've led a deal where the 4 companies for the past maybe 8 months, the lead CEO is actually female. And that's how changing the landscape has been changing. And it comes to a place where it is more equal opportunity for everybody. So I guess like keep continue and keep focusing on the true essence work.
Yeah. So thank you so much. We are out of time. Thank you, Melisa. Thank you, Carmen. And thank you everyone for joining in today's session. Please drop your questions and feel free to reach out to us on the app. Chat soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.